Alright, Faith. Let's run through some weapon disarms, just in case.
I think most controllers are pretty boring. Now, don't get me wrong, these guys are great at doing their job. The fact that you can play nearly every game ever made with an Xbox 360 controller really says something about its design, but it's all the same experience peripheral-wise. Personally, I get a much larger kick out of being able to play games in new, unfamiliar ways, and arcades scratch that itch really well. This is because when it comes to arcade cabinets, the developer has complete control over the way their experience is presented and interacted with, including the controller. Arcades are the best place to find unique ways to play, and creative innovations with gaming hardware. Now, this could mean quite tame changes, such as Street Fighter using a certain button layout to help players pull off a wide variety of moves. Or Pac-Man only needing a single button and a joystick to play. Then, there are some completely nuts ideas. For example, mocap boxing had you literally donning the gloves and stepping into the ring, throwing punches and blocking your way through the game. Or my personal white whale, Mazan, Flash of the Blade. In this game, you use an actual sword to slice through obstacles and enemies. There aren't any other buttons, tricks, or techniques. It's just you, the sword, and the game. It's really one of a kind and seriously underrated. Not to mention, a perfect example of how flexible arcade games can be. From sword fighting simulators to dancing games, all the way to Western live-action shooters, arcade games were the place to go for a truly unique experience. However, that time came and went a long time ago. Arcades have been in decline for decades with no sign of coming back. Luckily though, some of the more outlandish gems in the arcade space made their way over to home consoles, and helped to prolong the experimental arcade era. So let's take a look at some of these peripherals and how they captured that amazingly unique arcade experience. The most popular peripheral taken from the arcade would definitely be the steering wheel and accompanied pedals. Me and my brother used to race side by side in Gran Turismo 3 back on the PS2, and being able to use your hands and feet to burn rubber was just an incredible step up for immersion, especially as a kid. It felt amazing to be able to drive realistically in any way, and with general enhancements in quality, they now react to the player's situation using force feedback. Steering wheels also still have a significant place in the racing genre to this day, with hyper-realistic simulators such as Project Cars and EuroTruck Simulator. These games were designed to be played with a steering wheel, and the features feel incredibly clunky and unintuitive without them. For less realistic games like Forza and Gran Turismo, known as simcades, the steering wheel has become much less popular, with the most popular Forza esports event, Forza RC, limiting players to only a controller. It's a shame, in my opinion, though there are still many lesser events where competitors exclusively use steering wheels. And I think that's a really interesting progression, honestly. Back in the arcades, realistic driving sims were few and far apart, and your experience with a wheel would generally be an arcadey speed 'em up with drifting and trick mechanics. The move from arcade to home consoles made people realize that they could be doing a lot more for the steering wheel, until it became a more nuanced and sophisticated controller, still seen nowadays as a serious alternative to a generic gamepad. Light guns were also a big peripheral that found their way to home consoles. Tons of my time growing up was spent playing Mad Dog McCree and House of the Dead on the CDI, and for a good reason. With accurate aiming on CRT TVs, it meant that games didn't need a crosshair, relying on your ability to use the gun's sights to take accurate shots. It also made great use of the gun's maneuverability too, making you shoot off screen to reload, and forcing you to holster your weapon during quick draws, just like in the arcade. The light gun was able to shatter the wall between living room and warzone, and make me feel like a true gunslinger as a kid, fending off zombies, terrorists, and making sure to shoot Mad Dog in the head were made so much better with a revolver in hand. It made for some great arcade-style gunplay, and I lived for the times that I was actually allowed to play a game of Time Crisis at our local arcade, and use my whole body during gunfights, stepping in and out of cover with that foot pedal. What an experience that was. The genre as a whole was also able to be continued through the Wii's pointer functionality, helping to keep the archetype alive with re-releases of games like House of the Dead and Mad Dog McCree. Nintendo also released some decent light gun games of their own, including Duck Hunt Remastered and Link's Crossbow Training. With the new technology in the Wiimotes too, they were able to add nice details to enhance each game. Though only little additions, such as the Wiimotes projecting firing sounds and telling you to reload specifically through the controller's speakers, these changes made local co-op that much easier to implement with such a minimal UI in-game, and that's really cool. DDR was a fantastic arcade experience, and had an insanely huge cultural impact on the gaming industry. The peripheral was really unique in my opinion, because as far as I know, it's the only type of game that uses exclusively your feet, with the exception of Wii Fit. And as a result, to play DDR competitively, you really need to be in good shape. I mean, look at these guys go! Being incredibly innovative for arcades at the time, it also offered many different ways to play depending on whether you were alone or with a partner. For solo players, the game offered the chance to use both dance mats at once during gameplay, meaning they were taken across the entire arcade cabinet throughout the song, and were able to pull off much more advanced techniques while stomping about. And I won't lie, even though you look like a madman doing it, the double dance mat mode is incredibly fun, to play or to watch. And finally, we have Rock Band and Guitar Hero's instruments. I know it wasn't originally an arcade game, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning since it recreated the arcade's magic so perfectly that it was turned into its own arcade game. I remember my first time playing Guitar Hero as a kid, and how the guitar completely transformed the way I looked at games. The series is so near and dear to me because I just fell in love with the controllers and the general experience. Using a plastic guitar, drums, and microphone to perform songs on stage, the games replicated real-life instrumental techniques incredibly well, to the point where playing these games actually helped develop the respective positioning and hand-eye coordination skills needed for each respective instrument. Not to mention the insanely huge legacy Guitar Hero left. That stuff is truly worthy of its own conversation though. The cultural influence Guitar Hero left is just phenomenal. Each of these peripherals are made for specific games, which is probably why they never had too much longevity outside the arcade. Nobody really wanted to have to buy new, expensive controllers for a game they might not like, and unless you wanted a real challenge in any other game...
Oh god, here we go! Yes! Oh, I went for the combo and it worked! Yes, dude!
You are only going to use these controllers for their intended purposes. But they really should still be merited. They were designed to create a truly unique gaming experience, and work with the software to really break that barrier of immersion conventional controllers have. Stepping up to the stage on Guitar Hero and nervously twiddling drumsticks or adjusting your guitar strap, eyeing down the opponent in a duel before literally having to pull your gun from your hip, and gripping the wheel, employing real-life driving techniques to shave off seconds around the track. Holding these controllers in your hand were really something else, and these experiences made for some of the best memories in games for me playing with my friends. Screaming at each other as we drifted around tracks in Mario Kart, jamming out and competing for high scores in Guitar Hero, and hunching over our light guns, each one of us covering a certain part of the screen, ready to shoot down any bandits in our way. They were the games we played most together, and I think that's almost entirely because of the unique controllers. Compared to conventional gamepads, when you see these arcade peripherals, you know exactly what type of game you're about to play. You can get right into it without even needing a tutorial. It's universally appealing. Not everyone can pick up Call of Duty and immediately understand the controls, but if you hand them a light gun, they'll know exactly what to do when an enemy appears. I owe these wacky controllers a lot because of that. Growing up in an area with a single, subpar strip of arcades, being able to experience them at home made me really appreciate the social aspects of games more than anything else. So, to arcade cabinets, thank you.